Welcome, all of you, to our human design community, and I'm excited to be here today. I have a lot of content that I want to share with you today. I want to introduce you to quantum human design and talk a little bit about quantum human design. My intention is to give you a lot of information and data. And so to help you integrate that well, you should have a handout or a note sheet that goes along with the content that we're going to be presenting today. All right, so I am Karen Curry Parker. I am the creator of quantum human design and of the quantum alignment system. I am a multiple best-selling human design author. I'm also the co-founder of Grace Point Publishing. I just completed my PhD in integrative health. I actually studied the impact of your personal story, your narrative on your immune system. And what I found was, no surprise, that the stories we tell about who we are, particularly the stories we tell about the past, actually impact our immune response. And that one of the things that we can do to strengthen our immune system is to tell better stories about ourselves and to tell better stories about how we interpret our past and the past events of our lives. I have been an emotional freedom technique practitioner since 2000. I have been a life coach since 1998. I was actually one of the very first life coaches trained in the world. I trained with Thomas Leonard before he passed. I studied with and I worked for Ra Uru Hu, the founder of human design, and learned of everything I learned about human design from Ra. So I got it literally straight from the source and not from the books, but literally sometimes from the lectures that he taught and the things he said in the office. I have been teaching human design since 1999. I'm a Quantum University guest lecturer, a TEDx presenter. You can go to TED.com and look up my name and you'll find my TED Talk. Someday I'm going to redo my TED Talk when it's not a COVID TED Talk, which means I did it in my office, which was kind of a bummer. I really wanted to do it on stage. And I'm also the host of the almost award-winning, it's been nominated quite a few times, podcast Quantum Revolution, and you can find that online as well. So I'm going to give you just a brief overview of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about who is quantum human design actually for. We're going to talk about some of the dilemmas in human design and why they really matter. We're going to talk about the difference between traditional human design and quantum human design and why you really need to know both. We're going to talk about the science of conditioning and deconditioning and why they're inherent in understanding how to use human design. I'm going to give you an overview of our quantum human design professional training. And I'm going to show you how by helping yourself, you're actually helping your family, your clients, and you're actually changing the world because your story matters. So the first question that people always ask me is, what is the quantum human design, or who is the quantum human design certification for? And really, when we look at this, our certification training program, we have two very different groups of people who learn quantum human design. The first group of people who study quantum human design are people who want to study quantum human design more deeply for themselves, their friends, and their family, and of course for fun. They like to do readings for fun. You are my kind of people. If that's what you do for fun, you should come over to my house for dinner. We would have a good time. The second kind of person who studies quantum human design is somebody who wants to build or scale a quantum human design business or have a side stream of income. So a lot of our students, most of our students really want to start a quantum human design business, or they already have a coaching practice or a healing practice, and they're wanting to integrate quantum human design into their already constructed business, or they want to start a business, or they're looking for a side stream of income that feels really meaningful and that allows them to really do good work in the world. And maybe you relate to one of those two. Let's talk about our first really big topic. What is the difference between traditional human design, quantum human design, and why you really need to know both? So to get started, let's talk first about the history of human design. For those of you who don't know this history, it's kind of an interesting metaphysical, mysterious origin to this system. We don't always talk about it a lot, and I personally don't talk about it a lot for very specific reasons. And one of those specific reasons is just that I think that sometimes the origins of the story can sometimes get us lost in the strength and the validity and the power of the system itself. But I'll keep this sort of short and sweet. And if you have any questions, again, just go down to the Q&A and you can post in there any questions you might have about this. So the human design system is what I would call a revealed body of knowledge. It was revealed, if you will, to a man named Ra Uru. His original name is Robert Allen Krakauer. He was on the island of Ibiza, Spain, or in Ibiza, Spain. I'm not sure if Ibiza is actually an island, but he was on Ibiza, Spain. And during a supernova in 1987, this is called supernova 1987A. Here's a picture of it here. He received over 8 days an informational download. And that download contained all of the information that is traditional human design. He spent many, many years until he passed in 2011 teaching human design. And he used to say that it took him about 16 years to get everything that he downloaded during those 8 days out of his body and out into the world. He believed that it was his job to seed people with the information of human design, but he always taught that human design is a body of knowledge that we all got at the same time. And those of us who were born after 1987, you already were born with it. So in human design, he used to say, is in all of us. Some of us have it within us without being conscious of it. And if you've ever shared human design with others, or maybe you've had this experience yourself, you might have had the experience of seeing a chart and for whatever reason being really moved by it or really compelled by it. I will share with you that in my own story with human design, when I first encountered my chart, my husband at the time had been on a spiritual retreat in Sedona, Arizona. I was living in Texas at the time. We were living in Texas at the time with our 4 small children. He returned from Sedona with a chart. And when I saw the chart, I just literally started to cry. And I didn't know why I was crying. I had not really had a whole lot of spiritual experiences at that point in my life. I was still pretty young. And I just was blubbering, and I didn't know why I was crying, but I knew as soon as I saw it, I knew I had to learn everything that I could about human design. So we actually literally, within 2 weeks, put our house on the market. We had 4 small children, as I said at that time. We sold our house right away. We packed up our kids and we put them in the car with our U-Haul, and we drove across the country to Sedona, Arizona, so that I could study human design. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where to study it, but I was going to go study human design. So I followed my sacral because I'm a manifesting generator. I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time, but I followed my sacral to Sedona, Arizona. When we arrived in Sedona, my youngest son had an ear infection. And so I took him to the pediatrician. And when I came out from the pediatrician's office with this little kid on my hip, he was 3, I think, at the time. Across the hallway from the pediatrician's office was a door with the human design chart on it. So I thought, oh, well, I'll go in here. So I opened up the door, and inside was an office with a big desk and a small lady with beautiful white hair behind the desk. And she said to me, oh, did you come for the job? And I said, well, yeah, I did. And she hired me right there on the spot. That was Marianne Winiger. I worked for Human Design America, the headquarters for human design, and got to study personally with Ra and help produce educational materials with Ra until I left the office, traditional human design office, and started my own practice in 2005. So here's my big takeaway for you that I really want you to understand. For many of you, human design is already in you. You probably already know it. And if you don't know it consciously, you certainly know it unconsciously. And if you've had that experience of feeling really moved or compelled to study it, and a lot of my students do, this might be one of the reasons why that you came here to continue to transmit and share this information to the world, because I personally believe this is one of the most powerful tools on the planet at this time that has the purpose of helping people first learn to love themselves, and then secondly, learn to better love each other. And certainly at this point on the planet, we need that, right? We need to be able to know how to better love ourselves and how to better love each other. We also need to know how to make really good decisions because we're at some really interesting crossroads in terms of what we choose and how we choose to live on the planet. Now, there's a history behind traditional human design. And when I worked with Ra, one of the things that Ra stressed a lot was that someday he would evolve human design. He always said that traditional human design, the way it was taught and specifically articulated for what he called the not self, meaning when you go out into the world and you experience life, you are conditioned. And I'm going to explain to you what conditioning is in just a minute. You're conditioned. And when you are conditioned, meaning when you learn to be something other than who you are, when you learn to be some way different than how you are, when you internalize the message that it's not okay for you to somehow be who you are or how you are, you become conditioned. You begin to stray away from your authentic self. Ra called that straying process, or that person who you express, that false identity, if you will, he called that your not self. And so Ra always said that traditional human design, the way that he taught it, was designed to be spoken to somebody who was living out their not self identity. It was designed to be spoken to people who are conditioned, because the goal of traditional human design is to help you decondition. So it helps you remember who you are. And most importantly, traditional human design is really, really, really good at helping you remember who you're not. So when we look at the chart and we learn about openness in particular, which is something we talk about a lot in traditional human design, we're really looking at who you're not. And you have to start there. You absolutely have to start there. You have to figure out, how did I get this way? How did I decide that this is who I am when it doesn't feel right at all, or it's not working, right? Sometimes we feel a certain way and we think we should be a certain way and it's not working, right? Traditional human design contains within it a prescription, if you will, information that helps you remember who you are and untangle yourself from who you're not. So it's a powerful tool to help you learn to live true to your original blueprint. One of the things that Ra taught a lot when he was alive is he talked a lot about no choice. And if you've ever seen any of his old videos, you might have noticed that he has a black baseball hat on or a black t-shirt. He liked the color black. He said black is the color of the mother of the cosmos. It's the color of infinite potential. When Ra had hats that said no choice on them, or t-shirts that said no choice on them, and he talked a lot about how we don't have choice. And I would argue that that's true. When we're conditioned, when we are living out a script that is the script we've been told we should be following, when we're living from our ancestral programming, when we're living from our own trauma, when we're living from all those places where we are reacting to life because we're trying to protect the vulnerability of our authentic self, then we don't have choice. And many of us know that. Many of you on this call know that. I know that, right? That when we react, I did that last night. I went into my kitchen and had a reaction moment to something, right? When we react, if we don't catch that amygdala and that whole pattern conditioned response, we don't have choice, right? We're just reacting all over the place. Traditional human design helps you disrupt those reactionary patterns so that there's space for you to remember and reconnect with your authentic self. There's a lot of waiting in traditional human design. All types have to wait in traditional human design, including the manifestor types, even though we don't talk about this a lot. Manifestors have to wait for internal alignment. Generators have to wait for something to respond to. Projectors have to wait for recognition and attention. Reflectors have to wait the full cycle of a moon, right? Or more sometimes. The purpose of waiting is not about waiting. Sometimes I think when we talk about human design, we get so obsessed with the waiting. The waiting is the prescription for the healing. We wait because we've gotten disconnected from our inner wisdom. We wait because we've gotten disconnected from the true story of who we are. We have to wait. In the story of traditional human design, when we look at it as a healing tool, we have to wait because it's in the waiting that we remember who we are. We remember what we feel like in our body. That's what authority is, right? We remember what our body feels like when we encounter truth or we encounter something that doesn't feel good or aligned. We remember, what inner wisdom or the sound of source or divine inspiration sounds like inside of us. And because we're not doing, we're waiting. And we're letting our outer reality be this mirror to our consciousness. And we're taking our cues and clues from our outer world instead of our inner world. We're creating enough space in the waiting process to reconnect with our own inner compass, our own truth, what's good and right and real for us. And so that waiting that is so much a part of traditional human design is an essential part of healing. It's an essential part of getting us back to where we can learn to trust our inner voice again. And that's irreplaceable in the story of human design. And it is certainly something that when we train people, we always train people in traditional human design because that's an essential component to the fulfillment of the self. Now, Ra always said that he would someday write an awakened Ray V. Ching. So he wrote a book, or he actually never wrote a book. All of his books are transcripts of him talking because he was really a channel and not a writer. So he always said he would write an awakened Ray V. Ching, meaning he would write a version of human design that was designed for the person who had already gone through the deconditioning process. But unfortunately, he passed in 2011 and never got a chance to complete his body of work. Now, as I said, the problem with traditional human design, when we embrace that as the endpoint in design, is again, just remembering that it was never designed to be a permanent lifestyle. It is, as I said, a prescription for healing. It's also not scientifically accurate. So traditional human design teaches that if you follow your strategy for your type for 7 years, all of the cells in your body will have replicated themselves and you'll be entirely new. What we actually know is that only about 40% of your cells in your body replace themselves after 7 years, and some of them never replace themselves. And so you don't get to have a whole new body that's not conditioned. The other thing that we know is that conditioning, and let's remember, this is not about me saying that Ra was wrong. This is about saying that since Ra has passed in 2011, we've had big jumps in science. We've had a whole new field of science emerge called psychoneuroimmunology. We have a new understanding of how gene regulation works. We've gotten lots of new research on epigenes. We know a lot more about how the brain is neuroplastic. We know a lot about the intelligence of the heart, which, by the way, doesn't replicate itself very easily, right? So very little parts of the heart actually replicate themselves at all. They stay the same over the course of your lifetime. So we don't actually replace ourselves, and core elements of who we are stay the same, but we can rewire who we are. And certainly the way in which we rewire ourselves and certainly other parts of conditioning keep us stuck if we don't know how to rewire ourselves. So following traditional human design is a really, really good way to start rewiring yourself so that you bring yourself back to who you are. Now, before we talk about quantum human design, I want to give you some foundational information. It's foundational information that will help you understand why your story and who you tell the world that you are and who you think you are and how you talk to yourself inside of yourself is so, so, so important. Because when you understand how basic quantum creativity works, it gives you the power to start using your story and the way in which you live your human design as a way of re-engineering your point of creation in your life. And it starts to return to you sovereignty over your own story. And most importantly, in addition to that, sovereignty over what you choose to create in your life so that you go from not having choice when you're living from that conditioned reactive place to where you do have choice, to where you are able to consciously and deliberately engineer your experience of life. So I'm going to break down for you the basic building blocks of how we create in the world. So this is a sort of a pseudo mathematical equation that actually has no math in it. All right. So let's talk about the first part in the quantum creative equation, is the unmanifest reality. So right now, at this very moment, you are literally sitting in a field of moving infinite potential. So right now, as you're watching this on your phone or your iPad or your computer, or hopefully you're not driving, wherever you are literally sitting in an infinite field of moving quantum particles that contain an infinite number of possibilities for your current life and for the world and for the cosmos. You have, in conjunction with that, what's called, I like to call the mental and emotional body. There's lots of different words for it. You have basically a filter, an energetic filter that's influencing which of these moving fields of infinite possibility are you actually manifesting in your physical life right now. This is where you hold, this filter holds the story you tell the world about who you are. It holds your ancestral programming. It holds your genetic code. It holds the memories, mental and emotional, the artifacts of everything that have happened to you, your lived experiences, the things your teacher said, the things your mom said, the things your brother did. All of that is contained within these mental and emotional bodies. This is where you carry your conditioning. And basically, your conditioning is really just the story you tell about who you are. This conditioning field acts like a filter. It's helping you choose consciously or unconsciously which of those quantum particles from that infinite field of potential are you dropping into your physical reality. You have a third part of the creative equation called the subtle body. The subtle body, sometimes you might hear it referred to as your aura or your energy field, but you're literally holding an energy template. You have an energy template. It's not manifest. It's an energetic template that's holding in place everything that you've either been experiencing in your material world, in your physical life, everything that you're about to create in your physical life, or everything that you're in the process of discreating. So if you go see a good psychic or a good intuitive, they can sometimes look at your subtle body or look at your energy field and they can see, oh, you're about to manifest your soulmate. Or they could see, if they're a medical intuitive, oh, it looks like you haven't been feeling well lately. It looks like you had a cold and you're almost over it now. Anybody who does healing work on an energetic level knows how to read this. In the quantum alignment system, which is a version of quantum human design that we lead, where we integrate subtle body therapies into quantum human design, we work on this level with flower essences, and Jamila blends custom blended flower essences for all the different parts of the chart in order to hold things in place as we make change, to stabilize the changes that we make and to enhance wellness and well-being. The last part of the creative equation is called your manifest reality. That's your life right now. So everything that you're experiencing in your life right now once was a potential, right? And you funneled that potential through your filter and you dropped it into your reality right now, either consciously or unconsciously. And for most of us, we create unconsciously until we decondition. So another way of looking at this equation, if you look at this image, you'll see at the top of this image, you have this quantum field of infinite possibility. Then we have this filter. This filter is the story of who you are, the story you tell the world, the story you think you are, all the parts that make you you. That filter is pulling possibilities out of that quantum field and dropping them into your life right now. And literally, you are the story you tell about yourself. You are literally manifesting that story in your outer world right now. Now, let's take this down to a quantum physics level. Quantum physicists know when they look at quantum particles, and quantum particles are just the building blocks of matter, right? They're just the building blocks of matter. When they look at quantum particles, those building blocks, they can either measure the movement of the particle or they can measure the location of the particle, but never both at the same time. Quantum particles tend to behave the way we expect them to. So if we expect a quantum particle to be over here in the left, and we look for it over here on the left, it drops out of movement into location. It becomes manifest. So it drops out of movement where it's infinite and zipping and zooming into location, into manifestation. And usually that manifestation is a result of the expectation that the quantum physicist has about where that particle is going to show up. So you can either measure the movement or the location of the quantum particle at the same time. Movement is pure potential. So as you sit in this quantum field that you're sitting in right now, you're surrounded by all kinds of infinite possibilities and potential. The things that you have made manifest are potentials that you have made manifest. And the thing that makes them manifest is the meaning you give them. So meaning is what determines what we manifest. How we experience our life is based on the meanings we give ideas and archetypes. The meanings we have about ideas and archetypes are determined by the conditioning field. That's your mental and your emotional body. That's your filter. And if you want to create a different state of well-being in your life, you have to change the meanings that you have about archetypes and ideas. Well, what does that mean? It means our perception of the world determines what we create, the potentials that we activate in the quantum field. So we're going to do a little exercise together. I want you to I'm going to give you 30 seconds. And right now, as you see this slide and you see the word serve, I want you to right now in the chat, just type out really quickly, what does it mean to you to serve? What comes up for you when you think of the word to serve? Okay, so take a minute, write down, what does that mean to you to serve? All right, and I'll give you couple more seconds. All right, so we've got humanity on earth, help others, be in service to others, karma, hospitality, using my gifts to help others, to teach my family, loving kindness, to assist someone, to be truthful, to be of contribution, to give from yourself, to share my gifts, channel my purpose for the community, express higher self fully, do something useful, tangent, but 333, yay, for service. Help raise consciousness. Oh, you guys are awesome. Serve society. How beautiful, how beautiful. So let's talk about to serve, right? There's a lot of different meanings about the word serve. And sometimes, depending on what audience I'm talking to, when I talk about the word to serve, things like martyrdom come up, things like no self-care, things like I'm burned out, everybody wants something from me. You all are obviously very focused on serving the world. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I don't think there was anything, so it's sweet. I'm honored to share this call with you. All right, mission in life, one last one. To serve or serve, we just only looked at the word serve. Serve is just a word, right? It's just a word. It's an archetype. It's something that doesn't mean anything other than to give somebody something or to do something for somebody until we give it meaning, right? And it has a lot of different meanings. I mean, for you all, obviously, to serve means to fulfill your purpose and mission in the world. For some people, to serve might feel like something that they're stuck in or trapped in. For some people, it can be martyrdom. There's a lot of different ways to interpret the word to serve. So this is what happened when you saw the word serve. The minute you saw the word serve, your brain started a photon storm. A photon storm is a storm of light because the nervous system works with photons and light. That photon storm in turn caused your brain to produce neurotransmitters. So in other words, when you saw the word to serve, you instantly transform light into matter because neurotransmitters are chemicals that are created within the body. They're measurable phenomenon. Those neurotransmitters in turn created an emotional response. That emotional response was a response that was generated based on the meanings that you hold. So if you had a meaning about service and the idea of serving the world and serving people turns you on and excites you and makes you look at the clock and go, whoa, it's 333, which that's you guys, then you created positive emotional energy in response to the word to serve. And that positive emotion in turn calibrated your heart into a state of coherence, which is a highly creative state, that is an expansive state, that is a state that enhances well-being and vitality on multiple levels. Now, if you were burned out and tired and sick of serving and you felt like, well, nobody ever serves me, thank you very much. Maybe you felt bitter about service, and that was what came up for you when you saw the word serve, then you would have gone through the same process, only the emotional response that you generated would have been different. And you might have put yourself into a state of non-coherence or stress. And that state of stress would have caused you to be reactive and kicked up a low-grade fight or flight response. This is the mechanics of how you are constantly in this state of creativity. So photons are the part of our creative medium. What inspires the movement of the photons in the first place? Your story. The story you tell about who you are, the meanings you hold about the parts of your story that make you you, create your response to life, your physical manifestation of your life right now. In other words, to create the reality you want to be experiencing, you have to tell a story that matches what you want. And of course, if your story creates your reality, then you have to ask, who are you? Who is the you that's creating your reality? And what story are you telling about yourself? In other words, how have you been conditioned? And do you like the story you're telling? Is it producing the results you hoped for? Because if not, you can change the story. So part of what we look at with traditional human design is the experience and the process of deconditioning, untangling yourself from untrue parts of your story that are limiting, that keep you small, keep you disconnected from your inner wisdom, that keep you disconnected from your own inner authority, which is really the ultimate goal of human design, is to get you back in touch with what's true for you, regardless of what anyone else says. Even if you listen to something about human design and you're like, that doesn't resonate as truth for me, you're the authority about you, not a system. And that's sort of the irony, of course, of human design. It teaches you to follow your own authority, which means sometimes for some of us, we don't follow human design at all. So, all right, as I said, when Ra passed, he passed before a lot of the science about conditioning and deconditioning emerged. So when traditional human design talks about conditioning, it is primarily talking about openness by center, meaning we look a lot at the open centers and the conditioning, the way the open centers take in energy, and oftentimes the identities that we create around our openness. When I teach conditioning, I also teach some other things that condition us because human design is beautiful and amazing. I've given 25 years of my life to it. And it also doesn't explain everything. So let's talk for a minute about the 5 different kinds of conditioning we talk about in quantum human design. Oops. In those 5 different kinds of conditioning we talk about this in quantum human design training, we talk about openness by center. How does your openness influence the way in which you interpret energy, and how does it influence your identity? What we don't talk about a lot is imprinting. So we know from science, we know from how the brain develops and the nervous system develops, that as small children, we literally are imprinted by our family of origin and the people who are close around us. So we are imprinted in the way in which we think, the way in which we behave by our parents. And so how that shows up sometimes in human design, I hear this a lot, and I think it's an interesting phenomenon. For whatever reason, there are a lot of projector parents who give birth to manifesting generators. And the manifesting generators are imprinted by their projector parents' behaviors. And oftentimes, these manifesting generators walk around the planet thinking they're projectors because they feel like projectors because they've been imprinted by projectors. So sometimes when we decondition people, we also have to go back and look at your family of origin. We know from human design that you inherit your human design from your grandparents' designs. So you have elements of your grandparents' charts within your own charts. And so, of course, if you go on to have children, your children will inherit elements of their chart from your parents. So we start to see that part of conditioning is also generational energy patterns. We are born into these repeating energy patterns where we play different roles in that pattern, sometimes with a parent, sometimes with a kid, right? And these energy patterns, when we decondition them, actually allow us to have healthier families. And I believe personally, allow us to decondition our families in all directions of time. We know from the study of epigenes that some of our conditioning comes from our ancestral lineage. There are protein codes that live on your DNA that regulate certain genes. It turns them on or off in response to the environment, in response to many things. Those protein codes are called epigenes. They carry up to 14 generations of memory, and they influence oftentimes how we react to life, including really prime things like how we react to safety issues, how we react to food, how we react to money, even. And so we know that we are oftentimes already born conditioned by our ancestral lineage. And again, we also know from science that we can decondition our ancestral lineage by starting the process of telling better stories about ourselves, by creating a different set of opportunities for our own personal lives. We start to change not only our own genetic programming, but also to shift the genetic programming for future generations. And again, I believe we do this in all directions of time. I think our ancestors are wanting us to heal our ancestral lineage for the sake of the planet. And of course, last but not least, human design doesn't explain everything. Sometimes our conditioning is from our life experiences. That one teacher that saw something amazing in us and helped us lift us up, or that one teacher that maybe didn't lift us up, right? Our life experiences, including our traumas, can also condition us. When we are conditioned, we have no choice, right? That's what Ra talked about when he talked about no choice. We have no choice. We also have no choice but to move towards uncovering those places that have held us back, so that we can recondition ourselves towards our authentic identity. Our no choice is that we really don't have any choice but to be who we are. We can try to be someone else, but we can't, right? And of course, when we're conditioned, we don't have choice over how we respond to life. So once we decondition, once we untangle ourselves from these old stories, then we radically increase our capacity to consciously choose and create. So in quantum human design, which is phase 2, if you will, of traditional human design, I have to just share with you briefly the story of how I created this. So somewhere around like 2009, 2010, I think after the movie The Secret, we all woke up after the movie Secret, right? That's a joke. I started to see a lot of clients who had really been doing a lot of deep personal work. They'd been going to therapy, they'd been doing yoga, they'd been really making huge inner changes. And they were coming to me and saying, I know there's something of merit in human design, but it's like there are big parts of it that I don't resonate with anymore. And honestly, in my own story with human design, I wasn't really resonating with parts of my design anymore either. And so I really started to kind of look at the language of human design, and I kept hearing Ra's voice in the back of my mind saying, someday I'm going to write the Awakened Ray I Ching. And of course, at that time, I was in the middle of writing the Understanding Human Design book, and then Ra passed, right, as that book actually came out. And so it just kept echoing in the back of my mind that there was more that I needed to really explore. And so around that time, I started to get very interested in, I've always been interested in words, so that wasn't new, but I really started to get interested in words and frequencies and sounds. And so I started to explore what would happen if I started to change some of the vocabulary in human design to make it more empowering, more liberating, to really internalize the idea that you have a bigger purpose in life than just grinding it out on the planet, that you have a cosmic purpose, and that we needed words in human design to really describe that cosmic purpose. So I literally took, I don't have my thesaurus, but I have a really big thesaurus. And I started going through every single word in human design, traditional human design, and rewriting it and going into the lab and really testing using sound frequencies and measuring sound frequencies, testing the language so that I was consciously crafting a way of talking about human design with high frequency language. I put that system together and actually published the Encyclopedia of Quantum Human Design last year and called it Quantum Human Design. It does not replace traditional human design. And I want to be really, really clear about that, because traditional human design is essential. If you're not deconditioned or you aren't consciously engaging in the deconditioning process, you have to start with traditional human design. But a lot of my students, and maybe you relate to this too, really started to feel like they needed something more. They needed a bigger way of cataloging the story they were telling. They needed a way of changing the personal narrative. They needed a Rolodex, if you will, or a database is probably a more modern way of saying that, of the parts of their story. They needed to understand more deeply their soul curriculum. and how they interfaced between their life story and the quantum field. And so quantum human design was born. And of course, even though I'm a sixth line, I play a third line on TV. I joke, we had to experiment and play with it for a lot of years before I published the Encyclopedia of Quantum Human Design and began changing my training to include quantum human design and the quantum human design language. So here's just some things to think about in the context of quantum human design. If we go back to the synthesis of the ancient and modern sciences and wisdom teachings that is human design, we know that human design is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, maybe the Hindu chakra system, Judaic Kabbalah, the Chinese I Ching, and of course, quantum physics. What do all of these systems have in common? They're all based on archetypes, parts of a story. So an archetype is just an idea, a symbol, a pattern, or a character type in a story. So we go back to the word serve. Serve is an archetype. Money is an archetype. Creative is an archetype. These are all ideas, right? They are ideas that have a specific definition, but they don't have meaning until we add our own story to them, right? And so our chart is really a living version, an energetic storyline, if you will, that's comprised of our quantum human design chart. So we're each living a personal story. That story that we're living, I like to call it your soul curriculum. That soul curriculum that is your chart is comprised of the archetypes in the quantum human design chart. So this is my chart. If I take all of the names of all the gates and parts of my chart and put it in a word cloud, this would be my chart right here, right? I love that when I did the word cloud, divine transference came out big, even though that's not actually my solar gate. But I encourage you, if you haven't done this yet, go write down all the names of the gates in your chart and put it in a word cloud. It's kind of interesting and sort of juicy to look at. Those words, those archetypes that are part of your chart are neutral, right? Serve is neutral. Money is neutral until you give it a meaning. And of course, every archetype in your chart can have a low expression or a high expression, right? So if we think of the archetype hermit, which is the second line in a profile. So those of you who have a second line in your profile, that's not the only place where hermit energy lives in the chart. But if you think of the word hermit, there's a low expression of the hermit, right? Think about somebody, a new mom who needs alone time to regenerate. She's an introvert and she needs that alone time to regenerate and she's not getting any time alone. That's a shadow element of the hermit archetype, right? If you have somebody who has a hermit archetype in their chart and they go move out into like 10 acres of forest and they build a tiny hut in the middle there and they never come out again because they're sick of humanity, that has potentially a low expression of the hermit archetype. On the other end, the high expression of the hermit archetype is somebody who understands, hey, I need alone time to regenerate. I got to take some time to myself so that I can better recalibrate, internalize, integrate my life experiences so that I can go back out into the world and serve, right? That's the high expression of that archetype in the chart. Traditional human design brings us from low to average, right? It teaches us how to really live that baseline expression of the story of who we are. Quantum human design comes in with this new vocabulary and takes us from average to cultivating a conscious high expression of the archetypes in our chart. We are, of course, happiest and most abundant, and I believe most magical in our current awareness when we are creating an alignment with the highest expression of the archetypes that comprise the authentic self, our soul curriculum, and our unique energy blueprint, your quantum human design. Now, ultimately, the goal of quantum human design is to bring people to a deeper, richer expression of what I call quantum creativity. And so when we teach quantum human design, we talk about using quantum human design as a tool to help people recover their natural, innate quantum creativity. So again, looking at what is the difference between situational creativity and quantum or fundamental creativity, part of what we're doing in the arc of the journey with human design, starting off with traditional and moving people towards quantum, is we're taking people out of situational creativity where they're reacting in the moment, where their reactivity is determined by their conditioning, where they're looking for short-term solutions, where they're looking for solutions that come from the conditioned mind, where they're thinking and reasoning and sometimes being afraid and making decisions that are reasonable, versus when they understand their design, they follow their type and strategy, they wait long enough to remember what the voice of source sounds like within them, and they're able then to know what's the next right step, know who they are, know how to be in alignment in their life. We move them to a state of fundamental or quantum creativity that transcends conditioning, that allows them to understand what's the next right step through oftentimes epiphanies. Some of you are already there, right? You followed your type and strategy for a lot of years, and now you're really starting to feel like, well, what if I get something inside my head to respond to, right? Or what if I get an invitation inside my head? If you've deconditioned, you can follow that, but you can't until you know the difference between the cadence of your frenetic conditioned self. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, right? That's what it usually sounds like, versus that deconditioned, pure connection to source and truth. So quantum creativity or fundamental creativity comes from infinite source, life's intelligence. It's imaginative and possibility oriented. It aligns with cosmic order, the next right step in the evolution of humanity, and is oftentimes unreasonable, right? It's that intuitive hit that you should be doing something that maybe doesn't seem reasonable, but you know is the right thing. So to get people from situational creativity to fundamental creativity, we have a couple of issues. Number one, we have to help our clients, we have to help people create a healthy set of meanings that allow them to choose to create well-being in every area of their life. And we have to know what meanings to clear. You have to be who you're designed to be, and you have to know who you're designed to be, which archetypes are part of your soul curriculum, in order to know how you create what you really want. So the chart becomes this beautiful storytelling tool that really helps people understand what's in my soul curriculum, what archetypes am I playing with, and how do I activate those in the highest way possible. This is what you learn to do as a quantum human design specialist. You learn how to move people out of the deconditioning healing process. So we teach traditional human design. We teach you how to help your clients decondition. And then we help you learn to take your clients to another step, to go to another place in the deconditioning process, in the reconditioning, in the authentic expression of the truth of who you are. So we really walk people through this entire arc of the journey, going from healing and realigning and recovering and reclaiming sovereignty to consciously telling the story they choose to tell, so that that point of creation becomes highly intentional and highly deliberate in their personal lives, as well as in the way in which they engage with the world. So I want to share something with you before I show the rest of the slides that I have. First of all, I just want to show you this. This is not inclusive. This is just a borderline. This is just a small stack. There's actually some books missing. This is a stack of books written by my students. There's actually my students. I've had students publish a couple more books. One of my students, Raquel Reina, just recently published a brand new book called "Are You a Mutant?" about human design. I'm showing you this because I have written the foreword for all of these books, and nothing gives me more pride, except my kids, and watching my students do things like write books and succeed in the world. It's just an amazing thing, and I love, 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 love to support my students. The reason why I'm showing you the stack, and the reason why I'm talking about Raquel Reina, is that Raquel recently was speaking at the International Human Design Conference last week, and I actually got the chance to get her first signed copy of her book. Her book, as I said, is called "Are You a Mutant?" We'll post the link for you in the chat. Kristen just posted it there. Raquel talks about how right now we're in a cycle astrologically where systems are crumbling. Things are changing. You may have noticed that, right? Things are changing pretty quickly. And it's really difficult when we go out in the world to look at the world and to know what is truth, what's true, what is truth. And so one of the things she talks about is you have to reconnect with your own inner GPS system, your own compass, to know what is true and what is truth, in order for you to be able to engineer your way forward in a world that's changing very quickly, a world that sometimes can feel difficult to navigate if we can't connect with Who are we inside? What is true for us inside? And, part of why I wanted to share that is not only because I wanted you to go look at Raquel's book, but also because that's what I train you to do in the quantum human design training system that I created. I want you to, first of all, remember who you are and find your own navigation system so that you can find what's true for you. But also for you to understand that at this point on the planet, the work that you do as a quantum human design specialist is some of the most important work I believe that we can do right now. We need to be able to look at a world that looks pretty scary, depending on what perspective you're adopting, and to know how to navigate through this cycle of disruption and intentionally and creatively craft a template for a world that better reflects the truth of who we are. People need navigation systems. People need to know how to heal their trauma, their wounding, their ancestral lineage. People need to know how to reconnect with who they are so that they can begin to engineer their way forward in a creative way that allows us to build a world of sustainable, equitable, just, abundant peace, which is where we're headed. If you look at the astrology of what's ahead, that's where we're headed. But we have two pathways to get there. We can either get there stumbling around, reacting, and having not a great time, or we can get there deliberately and consciously and engineer the construction of this world so that we can very easily step out of this dismantled old system and move quietly and peacefully into this new way of living in the world. That is personally why I am so passionate about teaching human design and quantum human design. And honestly, it's the reason why I'm so honored to have the students that I have, because I know that every single person that gets called to train with me has that as part of their purpose and their mission. That's all you. I said the word served. You guys are already serving in the chat, right? So I want to share with you now a little bit about the quantum human design training system. And I want to share with you, because I feel so grateful and humbled to be here with you, an opportunity that I have with you to become a certified quantum human design specialist. So one of the things that I'm really the most proud of in our training system is that we build our system and our training system on the foundational block that is community and support. I don't think you learn well by studying something on a computer screen and then trying to go implement it. So when we created this system, and I can't take any credit for this, I have to always credit my team, including Hannah and Kristen and Jamila and many, many other people who you don't get to see on screen, who are behind the scenes working to give you the support and create for you the community that you need to help you integrate your learning in a deep, deep way. Our training is an online self-paced learning system. So each level has a series of instructional videos, slides, study questions, and additional student resources. We have a ton of resources for you so that you can complete it in your own time at your own pace. I've had students that have completed it over the course of several years. I have one of my daughter-in-law works for me, and she completed the whole training in 2 weeks, which is unheard of. No one's ever done that. But you can complete it pretty quickly if you choose. It's up to you. It doesn't matter. There's no merit to fast or slow. You do it your way. In addition to that, because I'm a fourth line, some of you are also fourth lines, I know that sometimes you have questions. Sometimes you need to get your questions answered. So we have every week live forums and online communities that you can call into. It's a Zoom call where you can call, bring your question, post a chart. If you can't be there live, you can post your question ahead of time. We have amazing conversations in our forums. It's an opportunity for you to connect with me personally. You get to ask whatever questions you have. We've got years and years of recordings of forums. A lot of my students tell me that once they complete the materials, they just go back and listen to forum recordings over and over and over again because they learn so much just from other people's questions. So it's not just an online program. You can have as much or as little interaction as you choose. We also have, and Hannah leads this, our monthly Chart Chat Live. This is a space that serves as a skill building session for you to become more familiar and comfortable with reading charts. So you actually get a chart and you get to practice with your fellow students how to read a chart, how to put the chart together, how to synthesize all the parts of the chart and make it a really meaningful way for you to be able to deliver your services to your clients. So it really helps you build your confidence. It really helps you actually, assess your wisdom. Oftentimes when people go to Chart Chat Live, they're like, oh, I didn't know I was this good at that. So it gives you the confidence to really recognize that you've already got it all inside of you. I'll leave this up for half a second. This is one of my certified specialists, Daniel. He says, this is an amazing community. I'm so grateful to have discovered it and be part of it. The support and the amount of resources is staggering in a great way. I'll just let you skim that for half a second. We also have a ton of resources, as I said, not just about the training, but also resources to help you get started with your business doing readings after you certify. So you can see here, there's just a screenshot of some of what we have. We've got intake forms and questions. We've got confidentiality and liability worksheets. We've got reading templates. We've got all kinds of resources in there for you to help you get your business launched. Here's just another specialist, Jacqueline. I am at a loss for words, which is rare. It is rare, Jacqueline. She says, I'm thrilled to have obtained my level 1 certification, but I actually cannot even comprehend the amount of support that comes along with it. I've barely scratched the surface with the library of resources and the support that's now available for me to help me continue with this very important work. The team are just incredible. Yes, they are. And so real along with it. I cannot even quantify the trainings as being good value. It's absolutely invaluable. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And this is Jasmine Love. This program, she says, this program is everything I vibrated to the universe that I wanted and more than I anticipated. So here's how it works. The Quantum Human Design training has 4 levels of certification. Your learning experience looks like this. As I said, it's online self-paced learning, live forums, and online community. You can earn while you learn. As soon as you get certified in level 1, you can start generating clients while you continue to study. And of course, when you're ready, you can dive deeper. And of course, you can amplify your training wisdom with live learning and connecting with us in our community. Also, of course, we have practicums. And in level 4, our Quantum Human Design level 4 is always taught live. This is the place where you learn the art of chart reading. So this is a really beautiful way where people come together from all over the world. It's pretty cool to learn about human design and how they can learn how to look at the chart and answer your clients' questions like, where's money in my chart? What's going on with me in my relationships? Or what's going on with me in my body? Or talk to me about my children, or what's my life purpose, or what's my soul purpose? So you learn how to really answer your clients' very specific questions. So I want to bring this to a conclusion before I take your questions. I just want to remind you that your birthright, the highest expression of humankind, is full engagement and joy that allows us to evolve by learning from and leaving the past behind, by consciously and consistently expressing our authentic potential and making our unique contribution to the world, taking our direction from spirit, being physically vital, having all the resources we need to fulfill our destiny, and taking actions that are only for the greater good of the world. In other words, we're designed to feel good, being who we are and doing what we came here to do. We're also, by the way, designed to be nice to each other. So be yourself, the real you. You literally are the greatest gift you can give the world, and the world needs you to be who you are. And of course, as a quantum human design specialist, you help people remember that greatest gift. Not only that, you do your part to help heal the world. All right. That's it. Take good care of yourselves. Be well. Thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time and giving me the attention. I also want to thank Kristen and Hannah and Jamila. Thank you all for being here behind the scenes. If you have any questions, please reach out to Hannah. We love to have you in class. We can't wait to see you wherever we end up seeing you next. Thank you for joining us. Be well. Bye.